Welcome to Retail Retold, the stories behind how that store landed in your neighborhood. I'm Chris Ressa, in conversation with the people and stories shaping retail and real estate. Brought to you by DLC. Welcome to Retail Retold, everyone. Today I'm joined by David Cobb. David is the owner and founder of Archon Commercial Advisors, a commercial real estate company. He is an author and an entrepreneur. I'm excited for him to share his story. Welcome to the show, David.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. I appreciate you having me. I love your podcast and looking forward to chatting today.
Excellent.
Chris, let me close out my email. Okay. Maybe do that again. Sorry, there were some notifications going off.
No worries. Welcome to Retail Retold, everyone. Today I am joined by David Cobb. David is the owner and founder of Archon Commercial Advisors, a commercial real estate company. He is an entrepreneur, an author, and he's involved in a lot of other things. I'm excited for him to share his story with you today. Welcome to the show, David.
Thanks, Chris. Really glad to be here. Love what you're doing with DLC. Really enjoyed our chat the other day. Your podcast is great, and I really like what you're doing on LinkedIn. I did a pretty deep dive on your profile, and you're doing some great stuff in digital that I love to see.
Thanks, man. David, tell us a little bit more about you, because I found some interesting facts that I think our audience will really enjoy. And tell us a little bit more about you and what you're up to.
Yeah, I've been in the retail commercial world for about 16 years. I started and founded a boutique firm, development brokerage, pretty much fully faceted real estate firm here in Orlando, Florida. Florida is a great place to be in the real estate market right now. And as a part of my journey, I went out on my own about 7 years ago. And then about 4 years ago, I had to have an amicable business divorce from my partners. Things just didn't work out. We were in different cities, and as a part of that, I needed to rebrand, start a company in a matter of months, and that led me down the rabbit hole of a trend that I foresaw. This was 2018 with digital, and it's specifically what I thought that social marketing and especially LinkedIn, how it was going to revolutionize our business. So in 2019, I started writing blogs, which I really enjoyed, and I found that I had a bit of a hidden talent. And 26 blogs later, I got the idea to write a commercial real estate focused, well, B2B and commercial real estate focused book. And in 2019, I locked myself in my dad's mountain house. I thought I was going to get a few chapters done because I'm a pretty prolific writer, but all I really got done was a very detailed outline. And that took me down the path of writing a book that I recently finished called Tactical LinkedIn Secrets, Rantings from a Super Connector. And there's a lot of people, even that you've interviewed in commercial real estate, that are in the book, like John Crossman is a great example. Ed Coble from DeBartolo Development is in here, and it's a LinkedIn and B2B high level networking book that really focuses on our industry, and that's why I'm really excited to get on your industry focused podcast and just really collaborate. And I love what you're doing on LinkedIn.
Thanks. Yeah. I think it's a really interesting book, a really cool angle you take with the book. And there's some nifty things in there that I think the whole QR code, I think, is really cool that you have in the book. I haven't seen that in a book before. So
Yeah.
people should definitely check out your book, no doubt.
Yeah, I think the QR code's really neat because, unlike a lot of books that you just sit down and read, and my book is the type of book that you listen to with Audible. It's got a lot of different, graphs, examples. But the thing that's great about it is it's a short read. It's designed for people that are just getting into our business or looking for a job, all the way up to the C-suite guys that want to work on their personal brand, connect with other leaders, thought leaders, dream accounts, that whole deal. And what the QR codes do is they make it a really neat, immersive experience. It pulls the reader into the content. And one of the cool things that I love in there, it's actually my favorite page, is on page 89 of it. I was a college basketball player. I played a lot of hoops against Vince Carter as a kid. To me, Vince was the best dunker in NBA history. And on page 89 of my book, you can click on that QR code and see Vince Carter dunking on me in high school.
That is incredible. Really cool. Uh,
Yeah.
the QR codes do that in the book. So cool to connect the book in physical to digital. So just like what's happening in our business. So really cool. But athletics are pretty prolific in your family. You were a college athlete, but athletics run in your family. And I just recently found this out. And why don't you tell the audience a little bit?
All right, I've got a little bit of an interesting family lineage. I try not to, broadcast it and use it, but as a way to bring in traditional business. But I do like to promote my great grandfather's philanthropic ventures. This is his little bobblehead right here. Ty Cobb is actually my great grandfather, and I'm on the board of his museum. And that was actually one of the things that really got me into digital marketing is I knew there could be some really neat stuff that we could do. And he's got somewhat of a notorious reputation. He was slandered in the 1960s by a hack writer. But one of the things that people don't know about him is he was a big time philanthropist. He started a hospital in rural Georgia that serviced a very underserved area in the 1950s. And he also started an educational fund that's given over $20 million to Georgia college students since he started it in the 1950s or 60s. I think it was 1960s. And so I wanted to, as a part of being a steward of his legacy, I wanted to figure out a way that I could help. And so I joined the board, and I brought in Alex Servacio, who's also in my book. He's a high level digital consultant. He works with a lot of professional athletes, coaches, authors. And so we're really making a push to do some neat things with digital and bringing the Ty Cobb Museum, which a lot of people don't know about. It's a neat little museum in Royston, Georgia. Bring that into the 21st century and get their digital, kind of reputation prowess out there. And it's just been really cool to see the reaction of people designing the new website, the Twitter, the Facebook, all that kind of stuff. So, I'm tied to a neat piece of history, and I would recommend if you're ever in Royston, Georgia. It's about an hour and a half outside northeast of Atlanta. It's a cool little museum to check out, and it's a nonprofit, so everything that you buy or your entrance into the museum all goes to charity.
That's incredible.
Yeah,
And for those who don't know, Ty Cobb is considered by some, one of the greatest Major League Baseball players of all time. His batting average is unbelievable. He
yeah,
was
367 lifetime.
367 lifetime batting average. I know he was a stolen base leader like 6 times, triple crown
Yeah,
winner. He's gotten over 4,000 hits. And his baseball card is one of the most sought after baseball cards
yep,
in the world, right? I
yep.
don't know what it is today, but it used to be 7 figures, his baseball card.
Yeah, there's a couple different versions of it. I think that Ron Cobb, who's the historian at the museum, knows a lot more than me. But there's a certain type of tobacco card that is extremely rare. And back then they would put the baseball cards in little tobacco pouches and stuff. And there's one of them that's extremely rare. I think that there might be one in the Hall of Fame at Cooperstown. We've some of my family has a couple of them, but yeah, his baseball card's definitely worth some money. So that's pretty cool.
It's really cool. Okay.
Mm.
Really cool story. All right. The next part of our show we call Clear the Air.
Yeah,
It's a little way for people to get to know you a little better, David. And so I've
yeah,
got some questions for you. Are you ready?
yeah,
All
yeah,
right.
absolutely.
Okay. Here we go. Question one. What is one skill you don't possess but wish you did?
You know, I see people that run large organizations, and even if it's like, and you're like this because they're from your neck of the woods. We've done a lot of work over the past 10 years with Jersey Mike Subs. They've been a great tenant rep client of ours. I did the first handful of deals. Now I think my partner John Helene has done over 60 of those. I think anybody that in my and I run a small boutique firm here with phenomenal partners. I don't really need to manage that many people, but for the people that run these, whether it's a large company or even multiple stores that can oversee that many people, and change those lives, but also, manage that many personalities. I have a lot of respect for that skill. I mean, I just think being able to oversee that many people and be a leader is a really cool thing. Maybe I would possess that skill if I was in that type of situation, but I never have been, and it looks extremely difficult to me. So I have a lot of respect for people that oversee large organizations with multiple layers and multiple people. I think it's something that's really dynamic.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I often talk about when I grew up the corporate ladder. You went from I went from just being a line person to managing people to then managing people who manage people and managing people who manage people. And I don't really
Yeah,
like the word manage, but yeah. So it's it's about you need a lot of support because one person can't do it all. You need good
yeah.
systems in place. You need to really enjoy the people part of the business. So even for me, I often say I'm in the real estate business, but I'm really in the people business, right? I have a pretty large team, anytimes on my side of the organization, 60, 70 people. And I'm in the people business way more than
Wow.
the real estate business. So,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, you're
anyway,
one of those guys that has that skill that I definitely envy. That's really cool that you oversee that many people, man. That's great.
so, okay, next question. When is the last time you tried something for the first time?
I would have to say that that would be writing a book. Uh,
Touche.
and and for people that don't that haven't ever written a book before, or want to write a book, it's such an interesting process. It's a labor of love. I think to really write a book and do it right, you have to have a lot of persistence. You have to be able to break the mold a little bit, because one of the things that it's probably going to lead into the next question, but people ask, like, why are you doing that? Why would you write a book? Are you doing this because you want to have, because you want to gain attention, you want to be known as an author? And for me, writing the book was really about, I consider myself a leader too, just like you are. I think that's really cool. I didn't know you ever saw that many people. That's awesome, by the way. I consider myself a leader of people as well. But one of the things that I'm very passionate about is sharing knowledge. And I've always been the type of person in commercial real estate that I like to collaborate with the other developers, other brokers, everybody in our industry. I don't think that a good team or a good culture can be run by, putting screensavers on and locking your filing cabinets at night and being clandestine. I think that the more creativity we can share and the more knowledge we can share, it furthers our community and raises everybody up. And so, that was one of the main reasons that I wrote a book, is I just enjoy writing and sharing knowledge. And it was such a cool adventure that's led me down a lot of really neat paths. Um, I've met so many cool people. I've got awesome endorsements like Pat Williams, the founder of The Magic. I reconnected two old friends that went to middle school together that hadn't seen each other in decades. One was a friend of mine from my golf club. His name was John Mobley. He was a really good linebacker for the Denver Broncos. He won a Super Bowl with John Elway. And then his good buddy was a guy named Fly Navarro, who's one of the top offshore fishermen in the world. He's huge on Instagram. Those two went to middle school together, and because of authorship, Fly ended up finding me because we had the same publisher, and I ended up reconnecting him and John Mobley. So the book's been an amazing experience. I'm also passionate about connecting people. Like, I'm glad I connected with you. I'd love to introduce you to any of my contacts. And so, it was just a really neat adventure, that I'd be happy to delve more into, if any of your audience would be interested in what it's like to write a book. But it was a labor of love. It definitely wasn't easy, but it's kind of like running a marathon. It's like you get across that finish line and there's a big, sense of accomplishment.
For sure. Really cool answer. Last question. What is one thing most people agree with, but you do not?
Okay, this is probably very applicable in commercial real estate. I think that most people gauge their success by, or not most, I shouldn't say that. That's kind of speaking for everybody, but I think a lot of people gauge their success by how much money they make. Okay. And in commercial real estate, there's great opportunities to make money. It's treated me well. But I think as a part of your workday, and I think you understand this too, or you wouldn't have done. How many podcasts have you done now?
We're almost at 150.
Okay, you see, that's awesome. That's a labor of love too. That's the same level, as writing a book. And I think to really find true peace and success at work, you can't just be in tabulation mode of how much money you make. I think you now we all want to do good. We all have a fiduciary to our real estate clients, partners, investors, whatever, to make money. But I think that a lot of people in commercial real estate asked me why I was writing that book, and I think that a lot one people something that people might not think about or agree with is I think you need to fuse some sort of passion with your daily business activities, and I think that's where you find real success. That it's very rewarding, and for me, being able to fuse writing, blogging, and even the video interviews like this, because I do an interview series, being able to share that knowledge combined with my daily activities and not just trying to whack out as many deals as I can, and being able to find that passion, is something that I think is a little unique in my mindset. But you seem like the same type of guy that has that mindset as well, because I can tell you're very passionate about your podcast, just with the way that you prep and everything that you sent me, and just some of the ones I've listened to. So I think that you need to find a passion and fuse it with your daily activities, and that'll lead to a lot more of a rewarding life.
I like that. Find a passion and fuse it with your daily activities. That's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So one of the clients of yours is Huey Magoo.
Yeah.
Why don't you give us a little bit one liner on who they are, and
Yeah.
then about how they ended up in a location they did, and what market are we going to?
Yeah, we'll be talking about the Central Florida market, the Orlando area,
Okay.
which is where they started.
Orlando,
Um,
Orlando,
yeah,
Florida.
yeah,
All right.
that's where my company's based out of. They have a really neat story. The founders of Huey Magoo's both played golf together at Ole Miss. They both went and they made mini tours and things like that, but their Phil Mickelson, Tiger Woods dreams didn't necessarily work out. So they knew they needed to get a day job. And there was a lady at Old Miss that made had this really awesome chicken tender recipe. She would cook it before football games and stuff. So they went and paid her for the recipe, and then they started their first location over by the University of Central Florida. Now, the founder of it, Thad Hudgens and Matt Armstrong, who are both the really good golfers, they were members at my golf club, and I just got to know them over the years when they only had 2 or 3 units. And a gentleman named Andy Howard, who's the CEO now, he's the one that brought Wingstop public. He came in and sampled the product and just thought it was phenomenal. So he brought his expansion and franchise expertise in, and it just added fuel to their fire. And so we're doing all their brokerage here in Florida, in most markets, and then we're handling their master brokerage as well, and they're blowing up all throughout the Southeast. And I'm pretty sure they'll be in your neck of the woods soon with the way that the franchises are selling. And it was pretty cool. We actually did their first drive-through deal. So initially, they weren't doing drive-throughs, and we just had some discussions with them and ran the numbers and said, guys, listen, we really think this is the next step. And we basically placed their first drive-through store. We signed the first lease. One actually opened in a second gen restaurant in Georgia before, but and then it was right before COVID. And then once COVID hit, they pretty much switched their model all the way to drive-throughs, and their revenues like just skyrocketed with the drive-through model. So, we're really proud of being a part of their early growth. And we think that they're going to be a brand that you're going to see in most major metropolitan areas soon. We're blowing them out through a network that I'm a part of called Site Source. It's a broker network. Neil Shore is up in New York, where just a great group of people, and we're blowing them out through that network, and we're super excited about the concept.
So let's go back to this drive-through location. So
Yep.
where was the drive-through location?
It's in Ocoee, Florida. It's just west of Orlando. It's on a major thoroughfare. It's in a multi-tenant building.
Okay. And so did they had decided to be in Ocoee, Florida before, and then you just came across the drive-through?
No, we actually were telling them that, that we really recommended that they find a drive-through site. There's a developer here we do a lot of work with on the tenant side. His name is, Greg Hill, great developer, and, he was doing a build to suit deal. And, obviously, when you go from doing inline, to drive-throughs, your rents go up a lot. So, there was definitely some uncertainty there. They were nervous about paying that much in rent. And, we just really had to, do our research, talk to other drive-through operators that we were friends with. We actually got one of the head guys at Firehouse Subs, who's one of our clients as well. We got him on the phone and had with them and had him run them through, how much their revenue increases once you do a drive-through, or in their case, I think it might be a pickup window. And it was definitely a process getting them comfortable with it. But Chris, I'll tell you, once it opened, it was like boom, off to the races. They're doing like all drive-throughs now. It's really cool.
So you we're talking about Ocoee, Florida. They're going to open up a location there, and you told them, "Listen, guys, this has to be a drive-through." And they're like, "We're not a drive-through concept." And you said, "You need a drive-through concept." And one of the things that I find interesting is one of the things you did is you got another food operator on the phone with him,
Yep,
explain to him, what it's like to work a drive-through concept. And would you
yep.
say that was the point when he came away or they came away and said, "All right, let's pull the trigger"?
Yeah, these are pretty smart guys, and they saw the numbers that Chick-fil-A was doing and all that kind of stuff. And I think they knew they needed to go there. It's just, it was so early in the beginning that it was a lot of capital for them. But I really do think that getting the other operator on there, getting him to validate it for them, I think it definitely led to them getting more comfortable with the overall deal. And it wasn't like we really had another option in this. It was like, okay, do we do this deal with the drive-through, or do we do another one, in another location that's significantly cheaper? And ultimately they pulled the trigger on that one, and it's been a great location for them.
It's interesting because I don't think landlords or brokers enough get other tenants on the phone with tenants.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
think and so I'm stuck on that because I think that's like that referral or that knowledge base is interesting because you don't see that a lot, right?
yeah,
I know tenants I know tenants and I have friends or retailers often will call their peers and say, "How do you do in this location? Thinking about
yeah,
this market. What do you think of this market?" Those type of things. But I don't think something facilitated by landlords and brokers happens enough in our industry. And so I think that's an interesting point that you bring up that you got them on the phone with other operators and you mentioned you're a connector and that's probably why. But I
yeah,
you don't see that enough. And I think that would probably that would probably do a lot of landlords and brokers good if that happened more,
yeah.
where, other people, other retailers got on the phone together or connected through landlords and brokers. I think that was interesting
Yeah, I think the more collaboration and, like I said, the sharing of knowledge and intel and all that, you learn from other people's successes and their mistakes. And I think that you get two solid real estate minds on the phone and let them pick each other's brains a little bit. And only good things can happen when you collaborate in a creative way.
for sure. When when they was there a point at time where you thought that I don't know if they're going to do this. They understand the numbers. They're seeing the numbers, but they're not sure they want to do this drive-through thing.
I was pretty confident that if I put a game plan together and just laid it out and just showed them, the all the steps the whole way through. The developer was really good too, because this was a ground up project. So, and I know you know a lot about development and redevelopment. It's what you do. And so, as a part of it, they were also nervous about the new construction process and all that kind of stuff. But I had a feeling that we'd already kind of gotten them teed up to go there. So I was pretty certain that they would pull the trigger on it. but I just wanted to make sure that, my fiduciary to them, and I think there's too many brokers that really just try and push deals along without doing all of their due diligence and necessarily getting their clients comfortable. I think if I would have just gone up to them and said, "Hey, drive-throughs do awesome. You need to do this," they might not have. But since I walked them through the whole process, how long the construction would take, how much TI we were getting, how much the build out was going to be, what a true occupancy cost was, what the CAM estimate was, and then I gave them, that we're like, listen, guys, you're doing over a million out of a non-drive-through location here. If you do that, you're still within your occupancy costs. It could only be better. And so I basically walked them through the best case and the worst. This is what we do with all of our clients, but I walked them through the best case and the worst case. And the worst case just really wasn't that bad. And we knew that there was just the downside. I showed them that the downside risk was minimized and the upside risk was so much there. And it really kind of got them on board, and their thinking's great now about how they do it.
One of the things it, that I think, and this is kind of the last piece, and I'm curious how this went, that happens with new brands, especially ones that have some dry powder and looking to grow quickly.
Yep.
One of the things that happens is they lean way, way over toward already existing real estate or improved real estate
Yeah.
because it'll take too long to get unimproved real estate, right? If they got to go into a development, right? I'm at store two. By the end of the year, I want to get to 20 locations or whatever it might be for some concept. They're like,
Yep.
wait, I can't open this location till, you know, for who knows
Yep.
how long, right? And so was that ever a concern? Because that we get that a lot where someone wants to be they want to be open like within this calendar year. And sometimes with a new development, that's a challenge to do. No matter how good the developer is, there still have to build it, still have to go get the approvals, still have to do a bunch of stuff. And I'm sure you see that from time to time with with mature brands. It's a lot simpler, right? We see this all
Yeah.
the time with mature concepts, right? They understand the development process. They are they have pipelines that are mature, and therefore if it's not in the next 90 days, they're okay. They can wait because they want that right location. Some
Yep.
people just trying to get their boots off the ground and get going, and there
Yep.
means existing real estate often for that brand.
Yeah, we see that, and with them, we had it staggered out pretty well, but I would say I've seen that a ton over the years. And what I tell them is when you're opening a location, especially if you're a franchisee or a new concept, your fixed costs are going to be there. You're going to have your build out, your rent, your time, your legal, architects, all that kind of stuff. And so if you're going to spend $500,000 on a build out, those costs are going to be there no matter how solid the real estate is. But you need to think in a long-term time window, because if you're talking about, getting open quick because you're bored, or just because you're antsy, you need to think 8 years from now, if that location is going to be a $2 million store versus a $1.5 million store, how much money does that equate to versus waiting a little bit of time for that new construction? And you just really need to coach them on the long game, because as good as anybody, you acquire shopping centers. And I actually met with Brad Peterson this morning. I mentioned your name. But if you rush and pull the trigger on a bad deal, it's just going to cripple you. You're going to have all those same fixed costs, and it's going to devalue it if you ever want to sell it significantly, because they sell on a multiple. So yeah, you might lose a little bit of revenue for 6 months difference or a year difference. But if you think over the long-term time horizon, it's better to just be patient, get the right real estate, get the right occupancy costs, and just don't be too quick to pull the trigger on a bad deal. That's what scares me the most when we're helping tenants with our tenant rep. And it's the same thing on the development side. I'm doing some development as well, and you want to just wait for the right deal, even though everybody wants to get going and get busy.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Well, that's Huey Magoo's in Ocoee, Florida, and next time I'm in Orlando, I want to go see their first drop.
Oh, you got to check out the product. It's just
I'm gonna go
phenomenal.
check it out for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And we'll do that.
I'd love to get Andy Howard on your show too. He's great.
Yeah, we'll do.
Yeah, yeah.
Set it up. Okay. Keeping it moving. Um, I think the last thing I wanted to talk about is you're doing a lot in real estate. You're working with a bunch of clients, but obviously you mentioned before you wrote this book, which is really interesting. And you talked a little bit about it. I guess I would just say anything else from your experience writing this book that you think is noteworthy for the audience.
Yeah, I would love to give them I'd love to give them some of my main advice on LinkedIn. And there's and and I know you're gonna have 2 types of listeners out there, okay? There's gonna be people out there that just don't have the time in the day to necessarily post 3 times a week. That's ingrained in them, and I've got friends that are like that, and I completely respect them, that they're the ones that aren't going to be content creators. They're going to be content consumers. Okay. And then there's also the people that want to be content creators, creatives, whatever. So at first, I'm going to talk to the people that just want to do content consuming. Okay. And that's fine. If you're going out slinging it on your real estate job, that's awesome. Good for you. Hope you're making a ton of money. Hope you're sending your kids to a great college, whatever.
You'll
But
laugh
what
at
I
this.
would
I
suggest to them,
You'll laugh
huh?
at this. I
Huh?
You'll laugh at this. I get I feel antsy and like I'm not doing my job if I don't
Yeah.
post on LinkedIn every day.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah. No, totally. Totally.
to
You're
me, I feel like
completely a creator. Yeah.
that's like to me, that's like I didn't respond to an email about a deal. So
Yeah, yeah, exactly. You and I are both creators, and you're a creator just doing this podcast, which is awesome. Okay, but not everybody's wired for
sure,
that. But
sure.
but here's what I'll say: at a minimum, okay, you don't want to have what I call a skeleton profile. Okay, that's where you're like, that's like where you're in like a wedding, or a cropped wedding picture from 10 years ago. Where you look completely different, no background banner, no bio, all of that. I was talking to Tyler Carlson, who's the CEO of Resquared. It's a really cool app that they're
Very
rolling out
familiar
right.
with Tyler. Yeah.
Yeah, Tyler's great, and so him and I are buddies. I've interviewed him for my LinkedIn interview series, and I gave a presentation at the Retail Live with Stacey Mooney in Austin, Texas, about a skeleton profile. Okay, so what Tyler told me is, he said now anybody who sends him a resume, he looks at their profile, and if it's a skeleton profile, he throws out the resume. You know, and I think that's one thing where people are going. And a second part of that is, even if you are somebody that doesn't want to post every day, the LinkedIn is your new resume, it's your new business card, and you at least need to have a strong and dynamic static profile. And you can do that with little to no effort. It doesn't cost you anything. Because I mean, Chris, if you go on Google right now and you put in, Chris Ressa DLC, I guarantee there's going to be maybe an ad or two, but then your LinkedIn profile is going to pop up in number 1, 2, or 3. Okay. And so I don't know about you, but just about 90% of the people that I know, when they want to go do some research on somebody, they go hop on LinkedIn. They go hop on Google, and that'll take them straight to LinkedIn, because that's usually where you can find them first. So at a minimum, your dream relationship, your next big account, hell, maybe your next, husband or wife, Google's your name, LinkedIn pops up. You don't want it to look like a skeleton profile with no picture, all of that kind of stuff. And so, 100% for the content consumers, at least have a good static profile. Then for the content creators that want to get out there and do more, there's a couple of things I would recommend to them. One, instead of posting on the fly every day, go put together a content calendar. And decide, if 3 times a week is fine. Go ahead and get ahead of those posts. Do them all at once, to where you're not doing it on the fly. You can put some thought into it, get a few weeks ahead, and then if something really cool and timely comes in, you throw that in there, and then you just stack it out, and it puts you out a week ahead. And then the other thing I recommend is, I highly recommend everybody getting LinkedIn Premium. um, there's a ton of advantages to it. One of them is just, you want to see who's viewed your profile, because if you're putting yourself out there, you want to know who's looking at you. It's the best warm lead ever. They checked out your profile. And on the LinkedIn standard, you can only see the last 5 people that viewed your profile. Then they put the 6th one's like a blurry face. Like, that could have been Jeff Bezos looking at your profile. You would never know. And then, but with LinkedIn Premium, you can see the last 90 days. So, I think it's a little bit different for how everybody approaches it. And there's a ton of, tactics and just hacks and, things to do in my book that will show them all that. But those are just some tips. And getting back to the QR codes, your listeners might not know this, but everybody on LinkedIn, you go to the search bar on your phone, and there's a QR code, a free QR code for every single person that's on LinkedIn. You can see it. You can see it right there up in the top right. Everybody has their own free QR code on LinkedIn that they can throw in their marketing literature. Do all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of functionality that people don't know about LinkedIn that you can use for your business and really use it to connect with people, which is ultimately what it's about. It's not about being good at LinkedIn. It's about using it to establish relationships, following up in person or via Zoom, and then maybe in Vegas or one of the conferences, and then executing on the deals and monetizing it.
Are you going to Vegas?
Yeah, sure am.
All right. We'll have to connect out there.
Yeah, let's definitely get together, man. Love to do it.
I'll give a tip for you mentioned the content creators and the content consumers. I'll give
Yep.
a tip for those who are in between, who are trying to be they're consuming, they want to be creators and don't know where to start. Place to start is on engaging in the platform and on the comments. So a good
Definitely.
place to start is in the comments. Find your top 15 people that you want to follow and that you like and that you might want to connect with and start commenting on their posts. And then, and if you don't have anything to say, then don't comment. But the more thoughtful, not just the thanks or congrats. Those are fine if you're
Yeah.
genuine, but something thoughtful. And oftentimes what you find is you go back, some of your comments and the conversations through them are your best posts later on. So
Yes.
that's one of the ways to start is to comment. If you don't feel great about posting it, you don't know what to do, to comment. That's number
Yep.
one. Um, one of the ninja hat tactics on LinkedIn that's done me well, uh, and my friend Barry Wolf and I think, are two of the ones who use it the most that I see on LinkedIn in
Yeah.
space, which is creating your own hashtag. And create
Yep.
your own hashtag on LinkedIn. And this is a little bit of a ninja tactic. And, it takes a lot to get a lot of people to follow your hashtag. Um,
Yeah.
I have about 250 followers of my hashtag, which I would tell you
Good.
for some people, there's a lot of hashtags that are under 100.
Yeah.
But it's not easy. I throw it. I'm pitching that hashtag in like every post for more. Follow this hashtag. Uh,
Yeah.
but every time I post, if you're following that hashtag, I show up in your feed now, or hopefully show up in your feed because you're following the hashtag as long as I tag that. So it's a built-in 250 people that I show up on. Um,
Yeah.
and I'm constantly trying to grow that. So anyway,
Yeah.
if you want to try to get more into LinkedIn, creating tactic, and then a ninja tactic is the hashtag.
Yeah, no, I love that. I talk about hashtags a lot in my book, and I think a lot of people don't understand that if you put like, if you just put like a random hashtag, like, oh, hashtag Dave Cobb is awesome, blah, blah, no, there's no followers to that. The best hashtags for our industry that I've seen is I love hashtag CRE. I think that's like maybe around 20,000. Hashtag commercial real estate's in the tens of thousands, and then hashtag development. And then there's other big ones like hashtag marketing, which is millions, and hashtag technology, stuff like that. So hashtags are very, very important.
So the biggest hashtag that's in retail real estate is shopping in the retail industry. Shopping in the retail industry. Like, let me look.
Really?
That-
Very cool.
That's the biggest hashtag. I'll look right now. Hashtag shopping in the retail industry. That is 4.4 million followers.
No way. You learn something new every day.
Yeah. So that's the largest in our industry, shopping in the retail industry. It's a large hashtag. But I would say there's a lot of strategy you can look up about actually creating hashtags that are or not creating, or hashtagging things that have about 100 to 200 followers.
Yeah.
Um, Typically what you find, those people are extremely passionate about that hashtag and they engage on that hashtag more.
Yeah.
Um, So there's something to be said with that if that's what you're looking for. Anyway, shopping in the retail industry is a great hashtag, but my hashtag is Ressa on real estate. Um, so if you're not following it, please do.
Yeah, awesome. Russ on real estate. Cool. I'll start using that.
Thanks, man. Anyway,
Yeah.
so there are this has been great. I really appreciate it. Cool
Yeah.
stuff on your story, on the story about that deal at Huey Magoo's, on your story about your book. Last part of our show we call Retail Wisdom. I got 3 questions for you. You ready?
Sure. Yep.
All right. Question 1. What extinct retailer do you wish would come back from the dead?
Oh, it's funny. This is I think you'll think this is cool. I use props in my presentation. This is a Kodak digital camera. So Kodak actually thought about doing it, and then they never pulled the trigger. It'd be cool to kind of be able to take your film in every now and then and still get some old school pictures, man. I'm an old school guy. I grew up with those type of pictures. So I'd love to see Kodak and then, there's all I like the stories about the companies that didn't adapt and became digitally obsolete. So I don't know if I'd love them to come back, but there's an awesome slide that I emailed you that you might want to use in the future. It was a Blockbuster slide against Netflix, and it shows all the different Blockbuster arms, and then all it had was Netflix was mail and digital, and it had Blockbuster 60 and Netflix 7. So I just thought that was really cool, and that was a retailer that went extinct real fast. I actually backfilled a couple of Blockbusters back in the day. So those are kind of the two that I found more interesting that are extinct.
All right. Kodak. No one's ever said Kodak. That's an interesting one. Okay. Question 2. What's the last item over $20 you bought in a store?
My daughter's Halloween outfit.
Ah, what store? What store?
Spirit Halloween, awesome
Uh,
concept. Wrote about it. I wrote about it in my last newsletter. I love those guys. It's cool what they do to help landlords get a little extra juice on their vacant spaces. So I bought my daughter a witch outfit, and then I was a giant beef taco.
uh, I was the Riddler. We were super
Nice. You've got that personality, man.
we were the superhero theme, and yeah, Spirit Halloween's a client of ours, so we love them. Okay.
Very cool.
Last question, David. If you and I were shopping at Target and I lost you, what aisle would I find you in?
Okay, cool. So you would find me in the wine aisle, but not necessarily for the reasons that you think. I think we have another common friend in John Crossman.
Sure.
And back when I was doing, this was a long time ago. I had this conversation with over at his shop, but they said what they do is when they walk into a grocery store, they go and they look at the wine. And depending on what kind of mix they have in the more expensive bottles, are a great indicator of the customer base and the demographics. So a lot of times when I'm out there looking at markets, I'll stop by the grocery store, go in and see what their most expensive bottles of wine are to get a good feel for the disposable income of that area.
Very, very cool. Yeah, John actually helped. I'm really proud of our internship program here at DLC. We have a really strong internship program. I think
Yeah,
it's one of the better ones out there. So anyone knows anyone looking for an internship in commercial real estate, we're starting to market it now. Please reach out to us.
awesome.
Uh, and John, when we were starting it, John was really helpful in thinking through what our long-term strategy and how we would recruit for it. Yeah, so no,
Yeah.
John.
He does some great stuff with the college kids, and he introduces me to a lot of them. And I'm actually going to be doing a free LinkedIn webinar that I'd love for you to check out if you have the time after the Vegas ICSC. So yeah, John's been great to me as well. He's been a huge supporter of me taking the authorship jump and stuff, and he's a good friend. So he's an awesome guy.
Yeah, and I'll give you, and this kind of suits you on the connection. Like one of the things we were at a time we were going to a lot of universities, and we were like, how to send your kids to us, and it wasn't like working like I thought it would work. Like, oh, we have jobs for kids, like, and they'd be just giving us so many resumes, and it really wasn't happening. And and John was like, yeah, that's not going to happen. He goes, it's like anything else. You're going to have to build a relationship. It's a marathon with the university. If you want them to think of you first, you're not the only employer reaching out to them,
Yeah.
right? You're going to have to build a relationship with the university, spend time so that when they think they're constantly doing that. And so we've done that with schools. And that was a light bulb moment in our industry. Don't know why I didn't think of that, but
Yeah.
clearly that's been really helpful. And we've got definitely key schools that we work with regularly now to recruit out of college. So
Yeah, that's phenomenal, man. That's great.
yeah,
That's awesome for those kids and awesome for you.
yeah. Okay. Well, listen, man, this has been uh great. Thank you so much. And I'm gonna reach out to you. Let's connect in Vegas.
Yeah, awesome, man. Thanks for having me on. Thanks for letting me pitch my book to your audience. If any of them ever want to reach out to me via LinkedIn in mail, I'd be happy to give them any LinkedIn tips. And yeah, man, I really appreciate you having me.
Thanks. I'll catch up
Okay, awesome, Chris. Have a great weekend.
with you,
Have
Dave.
fun in New York with your wife, man. It
I
sounds
will.
like you deserve it.
Yeah, we will. All right.
Cool. Thanks, buddy.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Appreciate you watching. Hit subscribe. See you in the next one.